I know this is a little bit corny, but I actually got very bored at the start of all this trying to be an environmentalist when I realized that being an environmentalist is extremely confusing and there's too many things to try and fix. And did I really want to support CND, and did I really want to support Greenpeace, and did I really want to do all the political things that they want to do? And so I came to the conclusion that actually I just wanted to save the planet. And although that may seem like a really simple, straightforward thing, it's actually really confusing. Those of you that have been watching the British media recently, and those of you that are online, and those of you that are watching Facebook and stuff, will know that there's been an ad going round. It got somehow blocked in the UK, but I thought I'd play this for you anyway.
There's a orangutan in my bedroom, and I don't know what to do. She plays with all my teddies and keeps borrowing my shoe. She destroys all of my houseplants, and she keeps on shouting, ooh. She throws away my chocolate, and she howls at my shampoo. There's a orangutan in my bedroom, and I don't want her to stay. So I told the naughty orangutan that she had to go away. Orangutan in my bedroom, just before you go, why were you in my bedroom? I really want to know. There's a human in my forest, and I don't know what to do. He destroyed all of our trees for your food and your shampoo. There's a human in my forest, and I don't know what to do. He took away my mother, and I'm scared he'll take me too. There are humans in my forest, and I don't know what to do. They're burning it for palm oil. So I thought I'd stay with you. Orangutan in my bedroom, now I do know what to do. I'll fight to save your home, and I'll stop you feeling blue. I'll share your story far and wide so others can fight too. Orangutan in my bedroom, I swear it on the stars. The future's not yet written, but I'll make sure it is ours.
So Iceland is a shopping chain, and they've decided that they're going to remove palm oil from all of their products. Turns out they weren't actually using that much palm oil in their products, so it was not a very difficult decision, but it was a great advertisement. Actually, they borrowed it from Greenpeace. And the reason I wanted to put it up there is that this advertisement prompted my 17-year-old daughter to sign a petition to the UK Parliament calling for a ban on unsustainable palm oil being used in the UK. If you get more than 100,000 signatures in the UK, then it, by law, has to be debated in Parliament, and on the 10th of December, it will now be debated in Parliament, in the middle of discussing Brexit and other things that are maybe slightly more urgent. But anyway, what I wanted to say about this is it's a really good example of how complicated things are. This is probably the last time in my life I'm going to quote Friedrich Engels, but I would suggest that he had a point. That if you can't eat, drink, have shelter and maybe some clothing, then what's the point in the politics and the science, art? I'm not sure about his comment on religion, but I'd say that when we don't have a planet we can live on anymore, should we really be debating equality, poverty, some of the other SDGs? My problem is that I think the SDGs need to be prioritised, because we can't pursue all 17 simultaneously and think that they're all equally important. They're all really important to somebody, that's for sure, but they don't all allow us to continue living our life on this planet. We have a very serious problem, and this is what I'm mostly worried about. And it gets confused, because actually, according to the Indonesian Palm Association, more than 50 million Indonesians depend on palm oil. So if we go and ban palm oil in Europe, and if the UK Parliament decides we're going to ban palm oil, 50 million people potentially will lose their income. Now, how do we balance that? We've got sustainable, protect the rainforest, protect the climate, and we've just created poverty. SDGs say we should be reducing poverty. How are we going to balance these things? I think the biggest buyer being India also points out, India doesn't buy palm oil for fun. It buys palm oil because it needs it as part of one of the staple ingredients in the calorie content of what the people are eating to preserve people. Last week, one of the government ministers in India announced that he'd come up with a plan that India will become 100% sustainable in aviation by using homegrown Eutropa, converting it into biofuel, and using 100% biofuel for all flights across India. I did some sums. I'll share these with you. First of all, my calculation is that for every hour that that plane will be in the sky, you'll be taking away the food from around 7,000 people, because the land you need to grow the Eutropa could otherwise be growing crops, and those crops could otherwise be feeding people. So which do you want? Business class flights or feeding the population? I'll give you another example. To fly from here to the UK, to fly to London, takes about 80 tons of fuel. 80 tons of fuel is the same as 1 month production from the biggest quick service restaurant in the UAE. There are 17 flights a day. If one of the airlines from here wanted to replace all of their fuel with sustainable 100% carbon neutral biofuel, just to fly to the UK, you would need 186,000 McDonald's in the UAE. We've got 160. So I'm all in favour of having 186,000 McDonald's. I think it's a fabulous idea. But I don't think it's sustainable. It's not ethically sustainable, it's not biologically sustainable. So we have a really big challenge. And I would point out my completely bonkers statement. I think the United Nations has made a mistake. They've spent, since 1992 and the Rio summit, with the prime goal of reducing greenhouse gases. Their own chart, produced 28th, their own chart says greenhouse gases have gone up. So since 1992 till today, we've had 26 years of going in the wrong direction. What we have is very elegant ways of explaining why we're going in the wrong direction, and we've got more data to explain why we're going in the wrong direction. But actually, in terms of action, why haven't we achieved anything? And please, I'm sorry if you want to argue that we've achieved a lot, but honestly, when it comes down to simple numbers, we haven't. Our planet is less likely to survive this cataclysmic event now than it was in 1992. So I would point out a few other things. The United Nations has pointed to us that we have severe, pervasive, and irreversible effects. More floods, more droughts, and more violent storms. We all know this. We've all witnessed them. And yet the media presents a balanced thing. For every person saying that we have a big problem, they have to put on somebody saying, oh no, we really don't. This chap, they didn't just name a car company after him. He was actually one of the best inventors of his time. Mr. Tesla came up and said, of all the frictional resistances, the one that most retards human movement is ignorance. And we have ignorance. When I first started trying to save the planet 12 years ago, I went and found the British government's chief scientist. And I said, is this real? He said to me, Karl, the truth of the matter is we cannot tell the general public how bad it is because they won't be able to handle the truth. The truth of the situation is that recycling your aluminium cans is not going to solve this problem. The truth is that segregating your waste isn't going to solve this problem, and driving an electric car is not going to solve this problem. The big lie is that you think you can solve the problem. And then we've wrapped it up in a big smokescreen. We've ended up with somebody who says the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make the US manufacturing non-compliant, non-competitive. His name, Mr. Donald Trump. So the leader of the largest economy in the world, who was voted in by a fair percentage of the population, thinks that this is all rubbish. But actually he's not really saying that. What he's saying is, let's just not restrict our manufacturing industry. Let them just do what they like. Let's pull up the tar sands. Let's drill in Arctic. Let's do all these crazy things. Well, I will tell you from a position of having spent a while doing some stuff. I got a job in the end of 2006, based in Germany, trying to come up with a plan for one of the world's largest companies. That company, Deutsche Post DHL. what you may not know, 520,000 employees, 200,000 vehicles, 13,500 buildings and 423 aircraft. And that was my problem. The CEO said, Karl, work out what our carbon footprint is, work out how we're going to reduce it, and come up with a strategy. So we wrote their 10-year strategy. Their sustainability team came up with a solution. I didn't think much of it. I came up with a measuring system to measure their carbon footprint. I came up with an accurate way for every one of their 13,500 locations of actually recording what the carbon footprint was and then linking it to the pay scale of the staff that worked there so that they will be motivated to save carbon footprint. When we did that measurement, we came up with a sum that DHL's carbon footprint in their baseline year 2006 was 33 million tons of carbon dioxide. That doesn't mean much as a number. It's the same as all those countries put together, with all those countries added to it, and with all those countries added to it. One company has the same carbon footprint as 47 countries. There's only 192 that signed on to the Paris Convention. A quarter of the countries in the world have the same carbon footprint as one company that has one CEO, one CFO, and I had coffee with them every month for 3 years. All I had to do was persuade those two guys that this was something simple, that it was in their business interest to do something about it. We could measure it, we could manage it. We were then called in to Davos in 2009 to advise the World Economic Forum on how to take this problem on. I'm not totally proud of the fact that the organizing committee said, as far as we can see, you are unique in this field. I'm actually scared that we were the only people at the World Economic Forum who were talking about measuring things and managing them. Not about coming up with pretty graphics and about trying to solve 101 things that are wrong in the world. I don't deny that we have problems with poverty. I don't deny that we have an imbalance. There's not enough women in this room. I don't deny those things. But all of it is pretty useless if we can't live on the planet that we've got. The one thing that really scares me is when you really get hold of some good numbers. This number was from the Carbon Disclosure Project. This is a group that originally started about 10 years ago, forced by investors to look into the ethical policies of the companies they were investing in. They asked the world's companies to report on many things, but including their carbon footprint. Since 1988, 71% of the global carbon footprint has been created by just 100 companies. This isn't a massive problem that we can just bury our heads in the sand. This isn't something that we need yet another great blooming party in Poland to work out how we're going to come up with even more graphics. This is something that we just need to fix. I think that climate change has been caused by business decisions, not by you and me. Just think about this. I've spent the last 8 years working with McDonald's. In the UAE now, when you go into a McDonald's and buy a Big Mac, that Big Mac has been delivered to the store entirely carbon neutral. It's been running on my biofuel that has no carbon footprint. And you, the customer, didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to change your meal choice. You didn't have to pay anymore. You didn't have to do anything. What we need to do as business leaders is to take away the problem from you as consumers. We just need to fix our supply chains, and we need to get them to be more sustainable. It's a change to business decisions that's required, not individual decisions. The decision to recycle your can, for you to put it in a segregated bin, that's an interesting decision. But the idiots that take that out of the bin and put it in a big hole in the ground, that's a business decision. And the reason that that's a business decision is because they're working out, is it worth recycling? Is it worth sending it to China? Or is it simply cheaper to put it in a hole in the ground? That's a business decision. It's got nothing to do with you, and you can't fix it. So why bother? You can talk to my friend here. He's really good. Have a great brand. Have a good company, and they listen, and they've got a really good sustainability strategy. We wrote it for 37 countries for them. It's something that they take on board every day. But the reality today is best highlighted by this gentleman, Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. Most of you probably got LinkedIn profiles. Attempts to solve global problems frequently fail because they require collective action. We are not, as a species, very good at collective action, apart from going to war. And I really don't want us to go to war. Producing large-scale, reliable, affordable and carbon-free energy is one of those key global problems, and the solution is going to come from lots of entrepreneurial companies. That's what we need to be targeting. My business has made its contribution. You will read about this over the next couple of years. For 8 years, we've been producing carbon neutral fuel here in the UAE, taking the UAE's rubbish, turning it in the UAE into fuel, and then selling it in the UAE. I could have made a lot more money selling it into Europe, but making a sustainable fuel here and selling it in Europe is bonkers. Making a sustainable fuel here and turning it into fuel here, that's sensible. But now, we found a way of scaling even further. We found, in partnership with a very, very interesting enzyme company, a way of converting human feces into fuel. Nobody wants to talk about it because it's disgusting and it's dirty and it's smelly, but we can turn poo into fuel. You don't need to modify the vehicles, you get the same fuel consumption, and you're running on something that is a pure waste stream. That's my contribution. It's going to take me the next 20 years to scale this and put it out everywhere where there are human beings, but we can now run our trucks, we can run generators, we can run electricity production for electric cars and for other things on a completely carbon neutral fuel. We're achieving at the moment 93% yield in our conversion and a 4-hour reaction time. So here are our 5 truths on how we're going to save the planet. First of all, climate change is complicated, and it's been caused by business decisions. Secondly, every business needs to completely adopt low carbon technologies. It's not a, let's change the light bulbs, let's turn the air conditioning down a bit. This is a complete rewrite of everybody's business strategy. If you just mess around with light bulbs, just don't bother, because you're going to be out of business soon anyway. Those technologies will improve EBITDA, and they will make businesses more competitive. We've seen this. We've been working with some of the world's largest companies. Everybody that adopts really good low carbon strategies actually makes more profit. And as you said in your great quiz, this is what businesses are interested in. That's how we measure sustainability. Can we make more long-term money for our stakeholders? Those technologies are and will be created by innovative entrepreneurs. So our job is deploy those technologies in a more important, and it's more important than any of the United Nations SDGs for me. Having spent 12 years banging my head against the wall, meeting some of the world's wealthiest people, meeting some of the biggest companies in the world, I can tell you the businesses can address this. We've just got to ask them, and we've got to show them how they're going to make more profit, because that's what they care about. I'm sorry if that's entirely opposite of what we were here to discuss today, but that's what I think is important. And what I really want to say to you is, we've got to do this. Nobody is going to be happy if we don't do this. Our kids are not going to be happy if we don't do this. One of the ways that I convinced the DHL board to adopt this, I showed them this film.
Global warming is the average increase in the Earth's temperature caused by the reflecting heat of the greenhouse gases.
And that creates a blanket around the Earth.
The heat gets stuck in Earth because of this carbon dioxide.
The world will last forever because God will never let us down. And besides, global warming, we can take care of it. If the polar bears have no place to live, maybe we could try to make room in zoos and stuff.
What can I do for the world?
Me?
What it really needs is for us to realize what we've been doing and to stop it.
I'm really afraid of my children growing up and not being able to see like a blue sky or green grass. If we protect the world will protect us. If I don't do something, who will, you know?
So, I'm not an environmentalist. I'm just trying to save the planet. and I'm going to spend the next 20, 30 or however many years God gives me on trying to do that. Thank you very much for your time.